Welcome back to the Literary Lori YouTube channel. I'm Literary Lori, aka Lori L. Tharps, and I'm here today with this video to help you stay motivated to keep writing even when the world is on fire. Yes, so let's get right into it. All right, so the reason I wanted to create a video to help you stay motivated during times, difficult times, like global difficult times, is because my actual, reason for creating this channel was to help as many BIPoC writers get their work, get their writing out into the world, to help BIPoC writers get published, and just get their stories out into the world. And when the world is, on fire, I feel like this is the time we need more than ever to have BIPoC storytellers telling their stories. Toni Morrison said it best: this is when writers get to work. It's this time when writers need to get to work, particularly writers of color. So I'm creating this video. I'm sharing these tips with you today because I want to help you stay motivated to keep writing. So I have 4 ideas for you. I hope they're helpful. I'm actually recording outside today for the first time because I thought, one, it was a nice day after a lot of rain and cold weather. And 2, I thought, giving you a motivational talk would be better received outside. I hope the dogs barking, the birds chirping, and the nice family across the way having lunch outside chattering in Spanish is not distracting. So you'll let me know if it is. But let's get to it. All right, so I have 4 tips to help you stay motivated, and these come from experience. Again, I've been a teacher, a writing coach. I run a writing community for BIPoC women writers. So these are not, things I just thought of randomly. These are things that I know work, and also because once you hear what the tips are, you'll understand where they're coming from. All right, so let's get started. Tip number 1 to stay motivated when the world is on fire is this: be a student of history. Be a student of history. There go the birds. Again, I hope that's not distracting. All right, so what I mean by being a student of history is to give yourself some perspective, to remind yourself that this is certainly not the first time that the world has been an absolute shit show, pardon my French, and it's not the only time when writers and artists have had to continue writing through difficult times. So I want to give you the example of the Harlem Renaissance. I actually sent a similar message to my writers and people who get my newsletter. But I want to remind you that the Harlem Renaissance, which took place more or less from the early 1920s through the mid-1930s, those are kind of the dates of the Harlem Renaissance. And the Harlem Renaissance, while it was the greatest flourishing of Black literature and Black art, and it wasn't just in Harlem, it was all over the United States, let me remind you what was going on at the same time. You had the Great Depression, the stock market crash, the Great Depression. This is like immediately after, or kind of the fall of Reconstruction and the rise of Jim Crow era segregation, which was also the second coming of the Ku Klux Klan, which meant there was lynching was on the rise all throughout the South as white people were just losing their minds at Black excellence. So they were terrorizing them with violence, particularly lynching. Meanwhile, in Europe, fascism was spreading like wildfire. Italy, Spain, they're like, let's be fascist. Not to mention the Germans were starting to get their fascism game on as well. So the world was literally in a massive dumpster hole, if you will, when the on record greatest flourishing of Black writing and art was happening. So I say that to say, we understand that the world is on fire, but it has happened before. And not only has it happened before and we quote unquote lived through it, but it was actually the impetus for it was the backdrop for some of the greatest art and literature to happen. So let's just dissect that real quick. So during the Harlem Renaissance, all of these things are happening in the background, right? But Black people, and I hate it when people are like, oh, Black people understand misery. They can just make it through anything. It's not like we're particularly well equipped for dealing with misery, but Black people in America have had to struggle always. And so anything that hits white people, Black people get hit usually twice as hard because we are usually in more precarious places. But not that these things didn't harm, not that the Great Depression didn't harm Black people. Hello, they weren't lynching white people. So all of these things were happening. But so what did Black people do? Like, it's not like they weren't bothered, but they continued to make their art. And sometimes they were making their art in the face of all of the bad things that were happening. But they also depended on each other. They did things like had rent parties when, because money was so tight, they created rent parties. If you don't know what those are, that's when, they would have like a party and they would make, have music and dancing. They would clear the furniture out of their apartment or like move it to the side, charge $1 or $2. People would come, pay their $1, have a good time, and the money was used to pay the person's rent who was, down on their luck or had lost their job. So they're depending on each other. They're using the art to buoy themselves up through hard times, and they are again creating because. Again, maybe the creation of their music or their art, their poetry is what's going to be, what's going to call people in to help them, come to their parties or pay them for the little bit of joy or the resistance that the music helps them do or the poetry helps them, maintain. They're going to get paid for that in some way, shape, or form. So again, if you study the Harlem Renaissance creators, what they were doing, why they were doing it, how they were staying inspired, how they were serving their community, if you will, in multiple ways, you can see how one can continue to create. And I want to look at the writers and artists. Remember, the Harlem Renaissance, the epicenter was Harlem, but there were Black people creating art all over the United States. And I look back to the poet Anne Spencer, who I made a video about in my series on Black Literary History Month. You can go back and watch that. But she lived in Virginia, okay? And one of the things that she did and the way she actually got involved in the Harlem Renaissance is because when Black writers and artists were traveling between North and South because of lynching and violence and the new Jim Crow segregation laws, they couldn't stay safely in hotels on the road. Or maybe they didn't want to be driving around at night. So her house was like a safe house. So Langston Hughes and Zora Neale Hurston and James Weldon Johnson, all these people, W.B. Du Bois, they all stayed at her house because she said, you all can come to my home. It is a safe place. And when they would come, she would have like these salons so people could share their poetry and their music. So it became not just a safe place to stay, but she created this artistic place for people to perform and to share. And it was there that somebody discovered her art. James Weldon Johnson was like, you're a poet. Like your poems are wonderful. Send me some. We should have your work in the anthologies and the work that's getting published up in Harlem. And that's what she did. And that's how Anne Spencer became a well-known poet without ever stepping foot in Harlem. So again, it was because of Jim Crow. It was because of the situation that she opened her home to all of these artists that gave her the opportunity to share her work, to be discovered, if you will. So I'm not saying that, you need to open your home to travelers, but maybe you do. Maybe you do need to have your own salons in your home in opposition to or in resistance of the violence outside your door, and what might come from that. So that's one example. I want to give another quick example. During the Spanish Civil War, Langston Hughes was a foreign correspondent in Madrid during the Spanish Civil War. And he was embedded with a bunch of other writers and artists who took over a mansion of a rich family who had fled the city and gone out to the countryside to wait out the war. So they had like these incredible digs, this like beautiful, gorgeous mansion, but it was in the middle of city and they were like bombed every night and it was very scary. They had like very little food. They would eat onions at night. But Langston Hughes noted in his autobiography, that the way they, sustained themselves was by doing their art. He said the poets were writing poems, the artists were painting pictures, the novelists were writing books. Everybody was doing their art, and that's how they sustained themselves. But specifically, like, you had the poets and the playwrights saying, like, we've got to get our work out there to keep people motivated. We have to do our part. And so they would write poetry and plays and stories to keep the anti-fascist fighters inspired and reminding them that what they're fighting for is so important. And they knew that if a soldier is fighting, they don't necessarily have time to go read a good book. So they would write plays and go perform them on the front lines to keep the troops motivated and inspired. So they did what they could do. They said, we have to do our part. We have to keep the soldiers motivated. We have to tell, and the regular people, we're going to put plays on to keep them motivated and understand that their sacrifice means something. So we'll put these plays on. We'll print out, like, and they were printing on like old clothes. They would print on whatever needed to be printed on because paper was at a premium. But they knew that their job was to keep people informed because, of course, with fascism propaganda, like, they needed to keep people informed and motivated. And so they kept writing. So look at these examples of how other people created and kept writing and kept themselves motivated during difficult times, during war, during fascist takeovers, whatever it was. Be a student of history to motivate yourself, to know that your ancestors and others like you have done this before. And how did they do it? Study it, be a student of history, and use that to keep yourself motivated. All right. Whew. I'm going to be on my soapbox this whole video. Okay, let's go. Number two way to stay motivated during difficult times is to find community. And I don't mean like your mom and dad, which that's fine. And I don't even mean your besties from college. I mean, you need to find a community of fellow writers. Why? What I just explained to you about how how Langston Hughes was like embedded with other writers, it made him write, it helped him stay inspired. Like, regular people don't necessarily know the power of the written word like other writers do. And so you need people who understand why it's important for you to keep writing to help you stay motivated. So you have to remember, like, the average Joe is probably like, yo, save money, get a bunker, start saving canned goods, or, move out of the country. Like, they have their own ways of staying, alert and what needs to be done during these times. You need to be amongst the tribe of writers who understand that the government does not want the writers to write, especially the BIPoC writers who will, I was about to say who will tell the truth. All skin folk aren't kinfolk, I know. But why are they banning the books most often written by people of color and other marginalized communities? Because they don't want the truth out there. There is a very serious agenda to ban books that tell the truth, that ban books that give voice to those whose voices have been suppressed. Women, people of color, Black people, indigenous people, people from marginalized communities. They're banning our books left and right, trying to ban them even more on a federal level. You need to keep writing, and you need to keep getting your stories out there. You need to archive the truth, get it down. I love that, in the Spanish Civil War, they were writing on old clothes if need be. But why do they ban books? Why do they arrest journalists? Why do they assassinate poets? Okay, again, be a student of history or just look around you. You want to be in a community of writers to stay motivated, because other writers, when you're like, I can't, or there's no point, why am I even bothering? Like, I should be doing something more significant. There's nothing more significant. Look at me wagging my finger at you. I'm sorry. There is nothing more significant than being a writer who is going to keep the people motivated, keep the people informed, keep a record of what is happening and why it is happening. Okay? Your job is important. Your voice is important. We need writers to keep writing for inspiration, for motivation, for, like I said, for archival research, for archiving the moment. All of these reasons why, and again, we need the people of we need the black people and the brown people. We need the people of color whose voices are always erased to keep writing. And if you're in community with other writers, you will be reminded of that. You can keep reminding yourselves, you can keep reminding each other, supporting each other, collaborating with each other, sharing resources. Look, I got the last ream of paper. I know how to turn toilet paper rolls into paper. Okay? I'm serious. You need to be with your peoples, your writing tribe, to stay motivated during these times. It's, a lot of other people, they got their own issues. They're doing stuff. It's not like they're not doing important things, but they don't necessarily remember why the writers have to keep writing. So find yourself a writing community. And if you can't find one, make one. Okay? All right. I think I have a video or blog post somewhere about how to find a writing community. But in these times, you need to be in community with other writers to remind yourself and also to get the resources you need so that you can keep writing. All right. Number 3 tip to stay motivated when the world is on fire is read. That's always my tip. But seriously, I'm serious. This is specific. One, we already talked about being a student of history. So reading history books that can help you, like Langston Hughes's book, I Wonder as I Wander. This is his second autobiography. It's a wonderful book as, somebody who maintained their writing life throughout some of the worst times in history. It's an excellent, inspirational historical text. So you can read history books. You can read books like How We Fight White Supremacy by, it's a edited anthology edited by Akiba Solomon and Kenria Rankin. And this is a lovely, lovely, lovely book about resistance and from practical to inspirational to humorous ways that Black people have fought against white supremacy throughout history. Again, it's inspirational, but it's also kind of advice that you can actually take and put into practice. But you also want to read to keep yourself inspired. So what I mean by that is find the books that inspire you. If that's romance, read romance. If that's cozy mysteries, read those. Sometimes during this time to stay motivated, we need to just let ourselves fall into some comfort reads and do that. Because you don't want to be, if you get too wound up or too distraught, then you're of no use to anyone. So find those comfort reads and read them to allow yourself that comfort. And don't let anybody make you feel bad because you're reading romance while the world is falling apart, or a cozy mystery. Go ahead. You read what you want to read to keep yourself inspired, distracted, whatever you want to call it. Sorry, allergies. Anyway, but there's a second layer to that. When you read a book that makes you feel good in the midst of a dumpster fire, it is a reminder to you of how powerful the written word is. And if you are reading to distract yourself, to calm yourself down, to help yourself remember that happy endings can happen, to remind yourself that by reading, by being a student of history, you can get a blueprint for what to do moving forward, that is actually helping you remember how powerful the written word is. If it's doing that for you, the book you're about to write, or the book you're in the middle of writing, or the article you're about to write, you're like, oh, right, these books just did that for me. So let me turn around and return the favor and do the same thing for someone else. You understand? So read for yourself. Read to stay motivated. Read to stay inspired. Read to stay comforted. And rereading is fine, okay? If there's a book that you always love to read, go ahead and reread that right now. Do a comfort read. And then when that comfort washes over you, when that inspiration washes over you, when those ideas for resistance are lodged in your head, let that be a reminder that you can do the same thing with your writing. All right. Number 4, Put your work out into the world. Another way I like to say this is use the master's tools to destroy the master. Sorry, Audre Lorde, I'm switching it around. This is what I mean. One of the benefits that we do have with technology, as much as I consider us in a moment of techno-chauvinism where technology is trying to be shoved down our throats to the detriment of humanity, we might as well use the technology that we have to get our work out into the world. It's important that we put our voices out into the world. It's important that we put our stories, our resistance manifestos, our advice to survive, to overthrow these capitalist, I don't want to say overthrow, but to resist these capitalist manifestos, these capitalist regimes, these authoritarian regimes. Like, we need our voices out there. And again, even if you're writing romance, we need romance to keep others inspired, to keep ourselves inspired. We need just good stories. It doesn't matter. We need your voices out there because we need them to counterbalance the lies, the destruction, the apathy that's out there. I believe that whatever you're creating is counterbalance to what is out there that is propaganda to destroy us, to destroy this world the way it is, right? So you need to get your work out there. You need the feedback to keep yourself motivated, right? So it's hard to write in a vacuum and not knowing if anybody's reading it or helping you, or hearing you. So when you put your work out into the world, you get feedback. You find out that, it doesn't have to be a million people. If one person reads your work and says, thank you so much, your book, your short story, your article, got me out of bed today, or it got me to go down and vote, or it got me to exercise when I've been just so down, couldn't even take care of myself, or made me laugh and I haven't laughed in forever. That's powerful, because if 500 people reached one person, that's 500 people helped, right? So don't look at it as numbers. Why would I bother putting my work out? Nobody's going to read it. Somebody's going to read it. Somebody's going to be healed by it. Someone's going to be inspired and motivated. And by them being motivated and inspired, that then gives you the motivation to know my work matters. My work can change somebody's life. It really can. So the more we BIPoC writers get our work out into the world, the more we can shift the narrative of what's happening right now. So when I say use the master's tool to destroy the master, we have social media. You could be writing a resistance manifesto in Instagram captions if that's what you chose to do. You could write a whole book on Substack, right? Chapter by chapter. You could write a whole book on Facebook if you wanted to. I don't know who's still on Facebook, but whatever. Use these tools to get your work out into the world, okay? Publish an ebook, self-publish your own book, submit and get a publisher to publish your book. But whatever it is, don't keep it to yourself. Get your work out there. Be radical in your need to put your voice out into the world. It will help you stay motivated to see the response, and it will help you stay motivated to if you give yourself a publication cadence, right? Because if you're just I'm writing for, somebody has to, anoint me or publish me, you put yourself on a publication schedule so that you stay motivated. I have to put my blog post out today, my newsletter, if you want to write a book through captions, do that. You don't have an excuse anymore to say, I can't, nobody's reading my work, or there's no way for me to get my work out. Honey, write a zine, okay? Write a zine. Put it on paper and go to whatever the local Kinko's is today. Does Kinko's even exist? Staples, Kinko's, whatever. Your local photocopy. Girl, be real radical and go to your 9 to 5 and photocopy your stuff after hours where nobody's watching. And hand out your zines at the coffee shop, at Starbucks. Like I said, use the master Starbucks to distribute your work, okay? Get your work out in the world. See the change that you can create even in your small little universe, orb, whatever it might be. And don't think that just because it's one person, you don't know who that one person might be. That one person might be a quadrillionaire and their inspiration came from you and they did something magnificent. Okay? All right. So I say the more voices against the madness, the better, right? So I want everybody who hears this to understand that your voice can make a difference. So put your work out in the world, because you know then you're making a difference. And if that doesn't motivate you, I don't know what will. All right, just to recap, 4 ideas to help you stay motivated to keep writing. I'm talking to you, my BIPoC writers. When the world is on fire, 1, be a student of history. 2, find community of fellow writers. 3, read or reread to stay inspired. And 4, put your work out into the world, aka use the master's tool to destroy the master. Honestly, I fully believe in the power of storytelling to change the world. Another word for storytelling is propaganda. Like, governments have used propaganda, storytelling to destroy, to do so many things to dismantle communities, people, religions, coalitions. So why can't we flip the script and use storytelling in multiple forms to build coalitions, to build community, to take down authoritarian regimes? Because it is the truth. It is our stories that will change people, right? That'll get them to act. So let's do it. I believe in you. Keep going. Keep writing. Let's do this. Thank you for showing up. I'd love to hear your thoughts and comments. I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.